to our cherished listeners. This is Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM, and the time is right about for our flagship program, um, radio lecture series. And this morning, I'm coming to you from the Department of Educational Foundations under the School of Education and Lifelong Learning. My name is Roger AMOAKO, and I'll be leading through the course EDC 242, Trends in Education and School Management in Ghana. Trends in Education and School Management in Ghana. This morning, our topic for discussion is strategic leadership in schools, as well as characteristics or traits of effective leaders or traits of effective school leaders. So we'll start with strategic leadership in schools and end with traits of effective school leaders. Our listeners, especially our students, are reminded that we have our studio lines 050-392-3158 on standby. In due course, it will be activated for us to send our messages, call through, make submissions, ask questions, and then also add our contributions to the discussions this morning. Remember, we are also streaming live on the university website www.uw.edu.gh. We are also on Facebook Live, Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM. Remember, our line 050-392-3158 is same for WhatsApp and SMS. So back to our discussion. It's on strategic leadership in schools, and then the traits of effective school leaders. So strategic leadership in schools is a comprehensive approach to guiding educational institutions towards their long-term goals and objectives. So it's a broad guide that directs educational institutions towards their long-term goals and objectives. And the underlying word here is long-term goals. So it involves the development and implementation of long-term plans and initiatives aimed at achieving the school's mission, vision, and goals. So basically what we are looking at is that when you talk about strategic plan, it deals with the long-term goals, the plans, the long-term plans, initiatives that deals with long-term plans and aimed at ensuring that the institution achieve its mission, vision, and goals. So in this wise, strategic leadership in schools involves the ability of the school leaders to anticipate changes, foresee changes, and in anticipating changes also identify opportunities. And identify opportunities as well as allocating resources effectively. Allocating resources to ensure that the objective for which the school has set itself is achieved. And also align the efforts of staff, students, and stakeholders towards a common purpose. Align the efforts of staff, students, and stakeholders towards a common purpose. So if we talk about a strategy or strategic leadership where we are looking at a guideline towards achieving the long-term goals of an institution or an educational institution for the purpose of our discussion. Then the school leader must have that ability to anticipate change, identify opportunities, allocate resources effectively, and align the efforts of staff, students, and stakeholders towards a common purpose. So, strategic leadership is very important for aligning the school's resources, programs, and activities with its mission, vision, and ultimately driving continuous improvement and success. In other words, if you are into strategic leadership or you are leading a school strategically, then you have the school's resources, the programs, and the activities of the schools on one hand, and then you have the school mission and vision on the other hand. And then you drive the resources, the programs, and activities towards the school's vision and the mission, and ultimately driving continuous improvement and success. Right. Now, having understood or having an understanding of strategic leadership, then let's please continue with the key mechanisms of strategic leadership. So what are the key inputs when it comes to strategic leadership, and how it guides the long-term direction and success of school? The key mechanisms of strategic leadership and its role in guiding the long-term direction and success of a school. So one key mechanism when it comes to strategic leadership has to do with vision and mission. Vision and mission. So because strategic leadership deals with the long-term objectives of the institution, one key mechanism that drives strategic leadership has to do with a vision and mission setting. So in most situations, schools as institutions have their vision and their mission. So where they see themselves in the long term, where the organization, the school, see itself or want to be in the long term, and then what it stands for, what it exists to do in order to get to where it wants to get in the long term. And in that case, I'm talking about the mission. So strategic leaders in schools establish a clear vision and mission that sort of articulate the purpose and values of the institution. So for higher education institutions, senior high schools, and some basic schools, especially the private ones, clearly articulate, or you have their vision. And so the mechanism is responsible for developing a compelling vision and a clear mission that articulates the school's values. So it provides something like a roadmap for the school's long-term direction and serves as a unifying force for the entire school community. And so, for instance, the University of Education, Winneba, has the vision to become an internationally reputable institution for higher education. And so, its vision gives a direction where the university wants to get to, such that when we mention, or yes, when we mention reputable institutions of higher education, of course, for teacher education in the world, UUW wants to get there to be mentioned as one of them. And out of this, there is a mission. What the school stands for, there's a mission that drives towards this vision. Within the vision, or out of the vision, you have certain values that we aspire. Key one is academic excellence that the university would aspire. And so this will drive the university towards where it wants to be. So a key mechanism when it comes to strategic leadership has to do with the establishment of a clear vision and a mission that actually clearly articulates the purpose and values of the institution. So that is vision and mission. So as learners, as students of educational administration and management, we may take up leadership roles, and we want to apply strategic leadership in our endeavors. And so we may have a situation where we can engage our staff, our students, as well as community leaders to revise the school's vision to emphasize certain key things. So, for instance, in this 21st century that we are driving towards digital literacy, we can revise an institution's vision towards digital literacy, and thereby updating the mission and guide the introduction of, ICT clubs and community-led initiatives, all to sort of direct the vision of the institution. Another key mechanism for strategic leadership, or in strategic leadership, apart from clear vision and mission, is goal setting and strategic planning. Goal setting and strategic planning. So strategic leaders develop what we call comprehensive strategic plans. And remember, in our introduction and understanding of the concept of strategic leadership, we emphasize the long-term plans of an institution. So strategic leaders develop comprehensive strategic plans that outline specific goals, objectives, and strategies for achieving desired outcomes. So, of course, when these plans are being developed, it considers both internal as well as external factors affecting the school environment. These include, of course, the various stakeholders, students, who are key internal factor, teachers, education workers, and then we have the demographics, we have educational trends, community needs. All these are taken into consideration when we are developing the strategic plan or setting a goal for the institution. But the key thing is that it is more of what a long-term plan. But in all this, you take into consideration what we call the PEST environment. So we have the school environment, teachers, demographics, educational trends, communities. We can also, in setting the long-term plan, we also consider the political environment, the economic situation. We also have technological influence and so on and so forth. All these are considered with regards to developing or setting a goal or doing strategic planning under strategic leadership. So that is the second mechanism with regards to strategic leadership. That is goal setting and strategic planning. So a school can have or set a 3 to 5 year goal or strategic goal to improve maybe their BECE examination pass rate from, let's say, 65% to 85%. And here, with this goal, the school can develop a detailed action plan towards the achievement of this goal. And so it may include extra remedial classes, parent-teacher support sessions, as well as, teacher peer reviews of their activities. And these are detailed activities that will gear towards the achievement of this goal that has been set within a 3 to 5 year period. And that is a goal setting and a strategic plan. So like I said, a school's BECE pass rate is 65%. And the school leader or the leadership may come out with a strategic goal such that they want to increase the pass rate from 65 to 85%. Yes, this is the goal, and then out of it, detailed activities are ensured or are put in the plan to ensure that this is what achieved. And so goal setting and strategic planning is one of them. The next mechanism when it comes to strategic leadership is resource allocation. So strategic leaders are responsible for effectively managing the school's resources. And per the resource, as I always say, we are talking about financial, human, and material resources in a way that supports the strategic priorities of the school and enhances student learning and overall school performance. And this involves making informed decisions about budgeting, staffing, facilities, and technology to optimize the school's capacity to meet its goals. So yes, strategic leadership also involves allocating resources strategically. So looking at the needs of a school, the school may decide to allocate probably, let's say, 40% of its financial resources towards the construction of an ICT laboratory, as well as the equipment that are required to run this ICT lab. So probably the school has done some needs assessment, and based on data, they believe that that aspect of education in the 21st century within the school is lacking. And therefore, strategically, you look at allocating much resource into that to purchase equipment and so on and so forth to running. We can also look at sporting activities, such that the school strategically may think that they are not identifying and developing the talents of learners with regards to sporting activities. When it comes to sporting activities, probably the school is lagging or it's not developing well. And so based on data, based on information, strategic leaders may allocate resources to these areas, and then within a period of time, let's say 3 to 4 years, have a target that within this circuit, within this district, we want our school to become best in athletics or in football or in other sporting activities. And this requires strategically allocating resources for the development of the sporting activities, the field, the equipment that are required. So, like I said, resource allocation is a key mechanism when it comes to strategic leadership, and it involves making informed decisions, and these informed decisions are rooted in data, where you have actually done your studies, your research within the school, and based on that, it is believed that there are certain areas that needs improvement, and therefore resources need to be allocated there more. Some may decide to allocate resources for supervision and monitoring, probably because within the district there may be high absenteeism of teachers, and because of that it is affecting their academic performance or the general well-being of the school. And therefore, within a particular period, based on data, the district management of education may decide that we are allocating more resources into purchasing or maintaining vehicles and purchasing fuel for resource, and also ensure that resource persons and CISOs are equipped to be able to do their work effectively based on the feedback and studies that have been done. So resource allocation is also a key mechanism when it comes to strategic leadership. Another key mechanism when it comes to strategic leadership has to do with stakeholder engagement. So that is stakeholder engagement. Strategic leaders actively engage with various stakeholders. And who are these stakeholders when we talk about stakeholders in education? Basically, we are dealing with parents, teachers, students, the management team, and the broader community members, to, of course, garner their support and input for long-term initiatives and cultivate support for schools' strategic direction and initiative. As we know, the school is not an island on its own. There are direct and indirect stakeholders who play diverse roles in the development of the school. And strategic leaders always ensure that they involve stakeholders, or these two stakeholders, when the need arises or when the need be. And so a head teacher in a school may ensure strategic stakeholder engagement, or in ensuring strategic stakeholder engagement may be holding forums. So we have some school leaders doing that, quarterly forums with community members, of course through the PTA. We have the assembly members within the community, where during their community engagement, the school involve themselves in it, and also try to update the community on the activities of the school. And by doing this, you are involving the community in the activities of the school, and that leads to easy support from the community. We can talk about non-governmental organizations and the rest, and discuss the school needs with them. So then we realize that when there is effective community engagement, and of course strategically, this is done because you don't need to wait till you are in need before you engage your stakeholders, but frequent collaboration and engagement, communicating to them letting them know what is going on in the school, and then within the community also involving yourself as a school or as an organization in the community activity. I don't think you will need to go begging cap in hand when there's a critical need for the school, because with the situation whereby you have strategically within a period of time had a very healthy engagement with community leaders, chiefs, opinion leaders, assembly members, and all those that matter within the school, it goes a long way to support the school. So by fostering collaboration and communication, strategic leaders build what we call a sense of ownership and commitment among stakeholders towards achieving the school's objectives. So practically, strategic leaders engage communities. So you have quarterly meetings, just as I've mentioned. You have the school being invited to assembly meetings, the school also inviting the community into their meetings through the PTA and the rest, and thereby advertising and selling the school to the community, and the community also involving themselves in them. So in terms of strategic leadership, stakeholder engagement is a key mechanism. Yes, so as we move forward, the next mechanism we'll talk about is data-informed decision making. Data-informed decision making. And just as I mentioned in terms of goal setting, I mean, strategic leaders are responsible to use data and evidence to inform their decision making process. So you analyze student achievement, school performance metrics, and other relevant information to identify areas for improvement. So is it building the capacity in specific areas for teachers, or certain specific subjects need some boost? This may be out of some data or informed decision. So for instance, a district director of education may use the school performance appraisal meeting, what is normally referred to as SPAM, data from the school performance appraisal meeting, to identify maybe schools struggling with teacher absenteeism. So this will now call for targeted interventions. And what does it include? Monitoring, attendance, incentives, and which will be introduced to address such situations. So you realize that this is based on informed decision. It is based on data and not somebody's biases or prejudice. But for strategic leaders, you are supposed to take data-informed decisions. That is key. So that is one key mechanism when it comes to strategic leadership. The next mechanism has to do with monitoring and evaluation. So strategic leaders establish mechanism for monitoring progress and evaluating the effectiveness of strategic initiatives. So based on the goals that have been set, which drives towards the vision and mission of the institution, strategic leaders are to ensure that they monitor whatever goals that they've set for themselves, and also the implementation of same. And this involves collecting data, analyzing performance metrics, and making adjustment as needed to ensure that the school stays on track towards its long-term goals. Right. So a school may, or the school leadership may set up, teams to monthly review lesson notes within the schools, to review student assessments in the school. I mean, this can be done internally and not always waiting for external supervisors to come around. But as somebody, or as a strategic team or strategic leaders looking at the long term, so that you don't wait for external supervisors to come, but because you are being strategic to ensure that the right thing is done and that enhances your work, leadership teams can be set within the school that will do a monthly review of the plans of the school. So monthly review, of course, of monthly or daily or weekly of the lesson notes, student assessment, attendance records, and then progress towards literacy improvement goals. All these can be evaluated, and teaching methods, of course, can be adjusted in this regard. So monitoring and evaluation as strategic leaders is a key mechanism, and it can be done by leaders within the school at all levels within the educational system. Another thing, or another key mechanism in strategic leadership, can be referred to as adaptability and innovations. Adaptability and innovations, yes. So strategic leaders remained flexible and adaptable in response to changes in educational landscape. I mean, emerging technologies and evolving students' needs. So the student needs of our senior high school students, our basic students, our university students in about 2 decades ago can never be the same today. Yes, there might be some similarities, but if we use 2 decades ideas in dealing with the current generation, then we will be having it wrong. So we need to be a bit flexible and adapt to situations that we have as strategic leaders. And this also require always being closer to our clients. In this case, we're talking about our students, being very close to them, understanding them from their perspective, and then have a balancing decision, so that decisions that we take will not be skewed towards one side, but a balanced decision taking that will ultimately lead to the achievement of goals that we've set for ourselves and for the specific institution's direction. So strategic leaders foster a culture of innovation and continuous improvement, encouraging experimentation and learning from both successes and failures. I mean, in about 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we were confronted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw a lot of innovations and flexibilities, because at this time we had lockdowns, our movement were restricted. But in terms of education and other sectors of the economy, we needed to survive, and therefore we had to be flexible. So there were teachers who were using various platforms, WhatsApp, adapting various technologies, apps, to continue, teaching. This adaptive approach ensured learning continuity, and of course within the limitations of what technology, but we made a very good use of it, and eventually, in as much as there were some challenges, we were able to close the gap that would have been much wider if we had not been flexible enough. So this is just an example, but there are so many situations whereby strategic leaders must adapt and be innovative. The next one that I will talk about is cultivating leadership capacity. Cultivating leadership capacity. Basically talking about capacity building. So, and that is the next mechanism in terms of strategic leadership. So, strategic leaders are also concerned with the development of the leadership capacity of their staff members at all levels of the organization. Every unit, department, every aspect of the school requires the capacity building of members within this area. And by empowering others to take on, and you can do this by empowering others to take on leadership roles and responsibilities. One of the effective leadership style in this direction is distributive leadership style, where leadership is distributed in such a way that each and every one is given a responsibility to perform. By this, you are building a pipeline of future leaders who can contribute to the school's long-term success. So cultivating leadership capacity right from the beginning is a key mechanism for strategic leadership. So you are ensuring the continuity of the school's activities so that you will not create unnecessary gap. You are training people, making them ready for the future. This might take within 3, 4, 5 years. And then strategically, you know that because you want to get somewhere, because there is a mission, because there is a vision that you are driving towards, the capacity of your staff members are always at the top notch, such that they will always be able to carry through the activities of the school or the organization. And so in these days, we have mentorship programs where senior teachers or senior learner colleagues train, junior staff in leadership roles, in teaching, in taking decisions in various levels or at various levels of the organizations. In the university, various departments are doing it, the units, each and every aspect we have mentorship, just to ensure that the capacity of the human resource base is always at the level that will require, or that the organization require. Of course, this builds what we call succession readiness. So at every point in time, there is somebody to take over, not to create a gap, in order not us to get backwards based on the hard work we've done in the past. So cultivating leadership capacity is a key strategic mechanism. The last but not the least that I'll talk about with regards to mechanisms for strategic leadership is change management. The constant thing that never change is change. And so we are always in an environment of change. So once you are a leader, change will occur. And strategic leaders guide the institution or schools through change process. It can be one of the most difficult situations that you find yourself. Whether it involves implementing new educational initiatives or adapting innovative teaching practices or responding to external factors that impact the school's operation. They provide leadership and support to ensure that change efforts are successful and aligned with school long-term goals. So, for instance, in implementing the new curriculum, we have the Ministry of Education through the Ghana Education Service organized training workshop for teachers. There was effective communication about this change, All stakeholders involved, teachers, parents, community members, and a feedback system to ensure that this change is done with little, what do you call it, challenges. All right. So we are still on 98.3 FM Radio Windy Bay, and the program is Radio Lecture. FM. It's coming to you live from Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM. My name is Mr. Roger AMOAKO from the Department of Educational Foundations under the School of Education and Lifelong Learning. This morning, the topic under discussion is strategic leadership and traits of effective leaders. We've under the course EDC 242, Trends in Education and School Management in Ghana. We went through the concept of strategic leadership. What does it mean? And the underlying key word has to do, or the key concept or the key word underlying this concept has to do with the long-term goals and objectives of the organization, long-term plans and initiative aimed at achieving the school's mission and vision. How resources are allocated strategically through the anticipation of changes, identifying opportunities, and effectively aligning the effort of staff, of course, all stakeholders, students, towards a common strategic purpose. So we also mentioned that we have the school's resources, programs, and activities, one side. We also have the school mission and vision, also on the other side. Strategic leadership try to align these two. So what the school stands for and where it wants to go, you drive the resources, the activities, the programs towards these two. And then that will give us a clear picture of strategic leadership. We've also gone into detail to look at some of the key mechanisms of strategic leadership. And we mentioned vision and mission setting, goal setting and strategic planning, resource allocation, stakeholder engagement, data-informed decision-making, monitoring and evaluation, adaptability and innovation, cultivating leadership capacity or capacity building, change management are what we have discussed so far with regards to strategic leadership. Right, we will move on quickly and then go through some leadership traits. And so in order to be an effective strategic leader, there are certain leadership traits that are required, and we'll go through some of these. But before that, let's understand what traits are. Traits. So they are qualities or characteristics typically belonging to Kweku that distinguish Kweku from Ama. So there are those peculiarities, distinctions that a leader possesses which make him or her different from the others or the other. Traits are qualities or characteristics typically belonging to a person that distinguish him or her from other people. They are those peculiarities and distinctions that a leader possesses which make him or her different from the other. Right. So it is important to understand that effective school leaders possess diverse range of traits that enable them to inspire, to motivate, and guide their school communities towards successes. And so, what are some of these traits? And we will see, especially Linking it to strategic leadership, we'll see that you have some of the key mechanisms coming up with regards to these traits. So, the key traits of an effective leader or strategic leader in this, for that matter, has to do visionary leadership. Visionary leadership. So, effective school leaders have clear vision for future of the school and are able to articulate this vision in a compelling way. And they are very ambitious yet achievable, goals that they set.
This is Radio Windy
provide sense of direction for the entire school and community. They inspire others. So I always look at the example with regards to Osaji for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And when it comes to education, one of the things that I always learn from him, it's his, in terms of the revolution that he brought into the education space of Ghana. So especially his plan for secondary education. And there are some of these schools that were under the accelerated development plan of Nkrumah in terms of developing or revolutionizing their development of secondary education. You visit some of these model schools and you look at the land that were acquired for these schools for education, and you marvel, how did this man think about this so many years back? Unfortunately, successive leaders at every level in terms of education were not able to protect some of these lands. I believe that, yes, in recent times there are efforts to do that, but you realize that there have been so much encroachment on some of these lands, and that is it. But we're talking about a leader who had a vision, very ambitious, thinking about the next generation, and that is great. So they inspire others to share their vision and work towards it. So strategic leaders are visionary. They are not operational in nature. Yes, they will ensure that they provide constructive feedback and foster open dialogue with school community. So are you communicating effectively? School leaders provide information in a very timeous manner. As we always say, information delayed is information denied. And therefore, you communicate at the right time. So schools may have weekly briefings with staff, using, of course, employing technology these days, WhatsApp, Facebook, and you provide timely updates on the school's policies, upcoming events, teacher responsibility, ensuring that everybody is well informed, articulating it clearly, understanding, knowing your audience, the group that you are dealing with. Is it student? Is it parent? Is it the community members? Is this opinion leaders? Politicians? You must understand as a school leader how to communicate with all these stakeholders in order to get the right feedback and what you have planned for the school. So strong communication skill is, of course, a trait of an effective school leader. The third one we'll talk about is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. So leaders with high emotional intelligence are able to understand and manage their own emotions as well as emotions of others. So this is telling us that before we can manage the emotions of others, you must be able to manage your own emotions first. And that is very important. So we are talking about being empathetic, approachable, and able to build strong relationships based on trust, mutual respect, and create a positive and inclusive school culture.
Windy Bay.
So,
98.3 FM.
An issue of examination malpractice have been reported to you as the head teacher. What do? Do you react immediately or act immediately, but no, you calmly handle the issue, go through. If there's a laid down process, you go through it, proper committee is set up, investigations are done, you refrain from being biased and reassure both staff and parents while awaiting formal review of outcomes. Calmly do that. You do not rush to take any decision. Integrity and ethical leadership. So having the trait of being an honest person, integrity. Effective school leaders demonstrate ethical and moral integrity, modeling honesty, fairness, ethical behaviors. School leaders must demonstrate transparency, commitment, and the rest. We also have collaborative approach. As an effective school leader, or the trait of one key trait of an effective school leader is collaboration or collaborative approach. You empower others to contribute their ideas, talents, and they foster a culture of inclusivity and cooperation.
98.3.
We have
FM.
resilience and adaptability, where we were talking about innovations, flexibility, right? Strategic thinking. So this is linked up with being a visionary leader. You strategically think. You understand? So you are looking ahead 5 years. What will happen within the next 3 years? Are we able to be in operation? Are we still going to have this best caliber of lecturers, teachers that we have? If not, what are we doing to ensure that we maintain such quality? Strategic thinking is a good trait or an important trait of a leader, a strategic leader. A strategic school leader also has the trait of being committed to continuous improvement. So you think about developing the capacity of your followers or your staff. Student-centered focus. Yes. And I had one headmaster which I believe that he espoused this trait so much so that at every point in time, students were always right. Yes. So because you are leading a school, you must always, be student-centered. But we need to balance it. But yes, our major stakeholders when it comes to education is our students, and therefore their welfare, the existence, the school existence is based on the student, and therefore we need to take it. So being student centered is a key trait for strategic leaders in education. Of course, instructional leadership is also a key trait. Inspirational leadership, inspiring your followers, continuous improvement mindset, and so on and so forth. Yes, so effective school leaders possess a combination of traits: vision, communication skills, emotional intelligence, integrity, collaboration, resilience, strategic thinking, student-centered focus, and inspirational leadership. And by embodying these traits, effective school leaders are able to lead their school at uwd.edu.gh. Right, so we have some messages, Facebook messages. Yes, so Aram Leboy, good morning, Aram. Watching live from South Campus, right? Good morning, sir. I'm watching you live from Ejumako Campus. That's James Edu. Thank you, James. Then Obiba Johnny, sir, please, I want to know how. FM. I want to know. Okay, let's take that again. It says, sir, please, I want to know, what then is the best way to make strategic decision? What then is the best way to make strategic decision setting a mission statement or goal setting? Because if I understand well, mission statement is set up to project the long-term plan of the school, and goal setting being the short term, which one will be more effective? Okay, John. Right. So basically, the mission deals with what the school stands for, what the school stands to do. So, as I always use the University of Education, Winneba, the school exists to train competent professional teachers for all levels of education. That is one. Conduct research and also contribute to educational policy development. So this is what the University of Education, Winneba, stands to do. That is it. Then when you come to the goal, under the goal, you have things that the university is doing to ensure that this mission comes into reality. This is identified with the University of Education, Winneba. So you have goals. Under the goals, you can further break them down into objectives, which will feed into the goal. And all these goals are directed by the mission, what you do. And the mission is also moving towards where we want to go when we look up into the sky. That is the vision. And the vision is to ensure that we become a reputable international institution, higher institution of what education. Yes, so the mission actually drives us towards where we want to go. And then we have the goal that ensures that we operate within our mission. Yes, so Gladys Ekuya Beku. Okay, good morning, sir. Watching live from North Campus. All right. Georgina J, listening live at Ejumaku campus. Good morning, my Ejumaku students. Ellen Tete, watching you live. I am the school. Okay, so Inu Samahama, I am the school. I will not set any pass rate. What will you say? Good work, my handsome brother. Doc, good morning. You will have to do it, else you will fail. That's Dr. Inusa pulling my legs. Okay. All right. So we have Rick Sterling. Good morning, sir. I'm watching live from the Winneba campus. Good morning. Watching you live from South Campus. I'm watching you live. This is John Bernard. Good morning, sir. Right. I think these are okay. There are more. All right, more. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. We have Amma White, Mike Kadu. Good morning, sir. Good morning to all of you. Nate Moses. Good morning, sir. Watching live from Ejumaku. Enoch, sir. Roger. My tutor at Afam Senior High School. That is true.
98.3 FM.
We have Long Jolali Hambo. Sir, what's the difference between adaptability and innovation and change management as a mechanism of strategic leadership? All right, so let me stay on this. So yes, there are situations that comes that you need to adjust yourself towards it. So we gave a situation like COVID-19 occurred. There might be some situations that will come in and you need to adjust yourself in such situations. Operations should not come to a halt or an end if you are a strategic leader. In the first place, you must analyze your opportunities, threats, weaknesses, and strengths very well. And remember that these threats might be situations that will arise, but you need to take advantage of them and then adjust to ensure that there is continuity in operation. In so doing, you may decide to come out with certain innovation, move away from the normal ways of doing things. And again, in this 21st century, apply or use technology to make up for some of the shortfalls that have come. So yes, adaptability may mean, adjusting, and innovation has to do with coming out with new ideas in the process of adjusting or in the process of adapting.
98.3 FM.
Right, so we're still on Radio Winnipeg 98.3 FM. It is the radio lecture EDC 242 for all our students reading, our level 300 students reading the course Trends in Education and School Management in Ghana. The topic under discussion this morning is strategic leadership and traits of effective leaders. Our studio lines are still activated. We are live on Facebook, Radio Windy Bay 98.3 FM. The university website, www.uu.gh.edu.gh. We can also send us SMS. You can call in with your contributions as well as your questions.
Windy Bay 98.3 FM. Windy Bay 98.3
Right. Yes, so as we wait for you, probably we can recap on the discussion this morning, strategic leadership in schools. And dear students and listeners, what are our take-homes in terms of strategic leadership? Our take-home, one of our take-homes has to do with the long-term goals and objectives of the organization or a school. And in another one is how these are implemented, align with the organization or the school's mission, vision, and goals. Let's also take note that strategic leadership anticipates changes, and that is why a key characteristic or mechanism with regards to strategic leadership is change management. It also identifies opportunities. It also allocates resource effectively, and you align all these things towards a common purpose. Let's note that when we come to the mechanism, vision and mission setting are paramount when it comes to strategic leadership. Then, after the mission and vision setting, we have goal setting and strategic planning. So you come out with a goal, and then you have various activities that will go through to ensure that you achieve that goal that you set for yourself. You also allocate resource effectively, strategically. Yes, so you may have a formula, a way that you allocate your resource, but based on certain development, you may want to channel resources to a particular area or program or activity because you want a certain result in the near future. You also do stakeholder engagement to ensure that there is ownership and commitment among stakeholders towards achieving the school goals and objectives. You take decisions based on data, based on research as a strategic leader. You don't take decisions on guesswork, no, but you take decisions based on data. You also do monitoring and evaluation as a strategic leader. Are the activities that you are implementing going according to the plan that you set for yourself, the goal, and is it driving towards your mission and your vision? You also remain flexible, adaptive in response to changes, and you also foster a culture of innovation. Cultivating leadership capacity. So how are you addressing the leadership capacity of your staff? Change management is key, and the rest. And so these are the key mechanisms when it comes to strategic leadership. I think we have some Facebook information yes. Yeah. Right. So good morning, sir. Watching you live from North Campus Geography Department. I am Edgelin Joshua Magnagak. I hope I got your name right. Asantua Paulina, watching you live from North Campus. Okay, and then we have ARAM, I think I've gone through. Sir, please, can we say lesson note preparation is also a key mechanism of strategic leadership? Well, key lesson note preparation is an activity which need to be monitored. So these are activities that will lead into the achievement of your goals or the plan that you've set for yourself. So it may not be necessarily a mechanism for strategic leadership, but it is an activity that need to be conducted as and in your school. And as a leader, these are things that have to be planned for and monitored to ensure that it is done and also achieve the purpose for which lesson plans are prepared. Watching you live from UCC campus, Courage Ampofo. Thank you. So what's the difference between adaptability? I think we've gone through these ones. Yeah.
98.3
right. So
FM.
We'll be wrapping up, and yes, so after the mechanisms we went through leadership traits, and we are it is not limited to this one. Let me say this: there are so many leadership traits, but our focus is on education, school management, and strategic leadership, and that is why we mention key traits like visionary leadership, strong communication skills, emotional intelligence, integrity and ethical leadership, collaborative approach, resilience and adaptability, strategic thinking, commitment to continuous improvement, student-centered focus, and instructional leadership, inspirational leadership, and continuous improvement mindset. Thank you very much for your attention and audience this morning, and hope to be with you next week.
Very well.